Hi everyone, I'm Fiona and I'm going to be taking you through the first part of social influence as a part of paper 1 for the AQA A-level psychology. Now, these PowerPoints are focused on the types and explanations of conformity. So first off, we are going to look at the types and explanations of conformity. So there are 3 types of conformity that you can be asked about: compliance, identification, and internalisation. Compliance is the most shallow type of conformity, and it's where an individual goes along with others in public, but privately they do not change their personal opinions or behaviour. So it's very superficial. And a particular behaviour or opinion stops as soon as group pressure stops. And an example study that looks at this is Ash's study of minority influence, which we'll go on to next. Then we have identification, which is a deeper level of conformity. It's the middle ground between compliance and internalisation. And identification occurs when we value something about the group that we are in. We identify with it, and so we want to be a part of it. The individual accepts the attitudes and behaviours as right and true, but the purpose of adopting them is to be accepted as a member of the group. And this is seen in Zimbardo's study in a mock prison. And then the deepest level of conformity is internalisation. And this is when a person genuinely accepts the group norm, resulting in a private and public change of behaviour. And this is likely to be permanent because attitudes have been internalised, and this change persists even in the absence of the group. And this is seen in Moscovici's study of minority influence, which we will look at in a different video. So those are your 3 types of conformity. Then there are 2 explanations: normative social influence and informational social influence. Normative social influence, or NSI, is when a person conforms to be accepted or belong to a group. A person conforms because it is socially rewarding or to avoid social punishment, and it is usually associated with compliance and identification, and it is very short term, and it's all based on desire to be liked. You're conforming to be liked. Then the next explanation is informational social influence, and this is when a person conforms to gain knowledge or because they believe that someone else is right. And this is usually associated with internalisation, so occurs on a long-term basis and results in a semi-permanent change in behaviour. The belief is the result of a person adopting a new belief system because they genuinely believe that their new beliefs are right, so you are conforming to be right. That is the AO1 for types and explanations of conformity. Then we have evaluations. The colour coding reflects the correct structure that you should be using for your evaluations in all of the topics that you do. So red is your point, a strength or limitation. Purple is your evidence or your explanation. And then green is your concluding sentence. Some of the evaluations have blue sentences in them, and these are issues and debates or keywords that show a higher level of knowledge. If you're working at an AS level, you do not have to worry too much about this. However, if you are working at an A level, so in year 13, if you want to be achieving the top grades, you need to be trying to include one issue and debate in each essay, ideally. If it doesn't fit, that's fine. However, do your best to try and include keywords. and there'll be later videos coming on issues and debates. So the first evaluation. A limitation of normative social influence is that researchers have found individual differences as to how NSI affects behaviour. For example, those less concerned about being liked are less affected by normative social influence than those who do care about being liked. And these people are described as naffiliators due to their need to affiliate with other people. This is shown by McGee and Tevan in 1967, who found that students high in need of affiliation were more likely to conform. This matters because it shows that the desire to be liked underlies conformity for some people more than others, and so there are individual differences in the way people respond. The next evaluation is a strength of ISI is that there is research support. Lucas et al. In 2006 asked students to give answers to mathematical problems that were easy or more difficult. There was greater conformity to incorrect answers when they were difficult rather than the easier ones. And this was most true for students who rated their mathematical ability as poor. So this study shows that people conform in situations where they feel they don't know the answer, which is exactly the outcome predicted by ISI. This matters because it shows that people do conform to those around them when they don't know the answer, and the research support strengthens the reliability of the explanation. Then the last evaluation is another limitation of the explanations, is that it may be difficult to distinguish if normative social influence or informational social influence is taking place. For example, in the Ash experiment, the dissenter may reduce the power of NSI due to providing social support, or ISI because there's an alternative source of information. This shows that it isn't always possible to be sure whether NSI or ISI is at work. Furthermore, Ash's study was androcentric. Androcentrism is when a research study only uses male participants, but generalises the results to non-male participants. So in Ash's study, all of the participants were young and male, and they were all American. Therefore, it cannot be generalised to other cultures or to women accurately. So this matters because it casts doubt over the view of ISI and NSI as two processes operating independently in conforming behaviour. So that is all the knowledge you need to know for types and explanations of conformity. And if you have a 16 marker, these are really good evaluations to include, and the AO1 is very straightforward as well. So hopefully you won't have any issues with that. And I've included a couple of exam questions, and the mark schemes follow on the next few slides. So what I'll do is I'll read out each question, and then I'll give you, pause the video and you can have a go at it, and then we'll go through the mark scheme, and then I'll go through question 2, and the process will go, I'll repeat the process. So the first exam question is briefly outline and evaluate normative social influence as an explanation for conformity, and this is worth 4 marks. So I'll give you a minute to pause the video and have a go at that. Okay, so hopefully many of you are able to give that a go. Some of the possible content that you could include is that people agree with the opinion of the majority in order to be liked and gain approval, acceptance, avoid rejection, or to avoid ridicule. And this often leads to compliance, which is where people will agree publicly with the group, but privately they do not change their personal opinions. Possible evaluation points: You could bring in any pieces of research, such as ASH. You could talk about individual differences in how much people want to be liked by others, and that is one of the evaluations I included on this presentation as well. And you could contrast it with other explanations, such as informational social influence. So hopefully that all makes sense. If you struggle quite a bit with that question, maybe watch the video again and have another go and see if you improve. Then the second question. Steph and Jeff are student teachers who recently joined other members of staff on a one-day strike. When asked why they decided to do so, Steph replied, "I never thought I would strike, but I listened to the other teachers' arguments and now I have become quite passionate about it." Jeff's explanation was different. To be honest, everyone else seemed to be striking and I didn't want to be the only one who wasn't. Discuss explanations for conformity and refer to Steph and Jeff as part of your discussion. And this is worth 16 marks. So I'll pause the video. If you want to time yourself and do it fully, give yourself maybe 20 minutes. You can use the PowerPoint if you want to, if you feel like you need some extra support. However, if you feel confident enough, write out a quick plan and see what you can remember to include in this essay. So I hope some of you managed to have a go at that question, and now I'll go through the mark scheme. So for your AO1, you should be talking about normative social influence. So referring to the social rules that govern behaviour and the need to be seen as a member of the social group. It's all about desire for social approval. And suggest that conformity is public agreement with the group and not private agreement. So it reflects compliance and how the change in attitude and behaviour is temporary. And then for informational social influence, it's all about how the individual believes the group has more knowledge or expertise. Suggests that conformity is agreement with the group due to uncertainty about correct responses or behaviour on the part of the individual. How it reflects internalisation. It's driven by the desire to be right, and the change in attitude or behaviour is likely to be more permanent. And you can bring in any research that you want to, such as Sheriff, Ash, Anderson. There's so many out there, and depending on what studies your teachers have included in whatever school you go to, there are loads of options. However, that is not a requirement to get full marks on your AO1. The next we have your AO2, and this is all about linking it to the STEM. So with Steph, she conformed for informational reasons. So she's become quite passionate, suggesting the change in attitude is permanent and internalisation has taken place. Jeff conformed for normative reasons. This is because he didn't want to be the odd one out, so his behaviour is temporary, showing compliance. Then your AO3. If you have a 16 marker and there is a STEM or a scenario, you only need 2 evaluations instead of the usual 3 because there are less marks available for the evaluations. So some points include use of evidence to evaluate or discuss the explanations. Normative social influence can explain the results of conformity studies in unambiguous situations, like ASH. Informational influence can explain conformity in ambiguous situations in which both public and private agreement occurs. You can bring in ASH variations, which we'll move on to later. You could bring in dispositional factors, difficulty of measuring and or distinguishing between the 2 explanations. There's so many things that you could talk about. However, the 3 that I've already gone through are very good options to include here as well. So I hope that you all found this useful, and if you have any questions, pop them in the comments below and see if you can help each other out and gain knowledge from each other, and I'll be back with another video. Thank you so much.